Welcome to everyone. My name is Daniel Sidoli. I'm a program coordinator at PrivacyRules. And for today's Privacy Espresso, we're joined by Brittany Bevacqua, which is Managing Director of Gregory FCA New York. Brittany, thank you so much for joining us today.
I'm Brittany Bevacqua. I'm Managing Director of Gregory FCA's New York office. Gregory FCA is a 30-plus-year-old integrated PR and communications firm. Our pedigree is really in B2B technology and financial services. However, we've represented companies from all different sectors, from real estate to sustainability. And certainly we have a very strong foothold in cybersecurity, which brings me to our conversation today. And in my role, I oversee our operations in New York, including our 3 teams. And I'll talk a bit more about what we do and how that relates to what we're trying to accomplish at PrivacyRules.
Great, thank you so much. And well, just for the public, Gregory FCA is part of a program within PrivacyRules called Cyber Crisis Communication Program. And in this program, we bring the expertise of public relation and communication as complementary side of legal privacy expertise and cybersecurity finalized to data privacy and related services. So without further ado, let me jump in the first question. Why PR and communication are integral aspects of nowadays business?
Where we sit in the area of data privacy, increasing incidents of breaches, hacking, executives behaving badly, individuals behaving badly, PR and communications holds an incredible amount of power in different areas. I think first, on the proactive side, being prepared for an event, regardless of what it is, often can help companies navigate and exit an issue much more swiftly and with less damage than if we're scrambling, in the moment to be able to prepare, ready the troops, communicate what we need to various audiences, and make sure that messaging is conveyed with empathy and factuality and all of those things that we need to do. I think in the moment, right, we can't always prepare. So when something does occur, PR and communications in particular really gives organizations an opportunity to convey things that need to be said from an employee perspective to their customers, to partners, to investors. And one message does not fit all, and one channel may not be appropriate for all of those parties. And certainly from a legal and regulatory perspective, there are very strict requirements. Let's say if a company experiences a data breach, by which they have to disclose the incident, who they need to tell, the information that they actually have to fill out in the disclosure forms. And communications should always play and should always be a piece in that process. You want to have a consistent narrative, and really bringing in a strategic communications person or team will help companies achieve just that. And certainly in the recovery process, we can talk a bit more about that. There's often a lot of work to do in the aftermath when things are resolved. Sometimes it's simple, but other times it requires us to re-educate the market, to regain trust, to build back relationships with the press. And that takes time, and it takes quite a bit of strategic planning and execution. And that's really where communications becomes very critical.
Thank you so much. My second question, as PrivacyRules is focused on privacy, what role do you think that communication plays in promoting privacy and addressing privacy issues?
It's such a big part of it. And I think, Gregory FCA is based in the US. Most of our clients are US based, though we do service clients around the world. And I will say there's kind of a few different things happening when it comes to privacy and market perception or market acceptance of what that means. I think on one hand, in the US, consumers, knowingly or unknowingly, are giving away their data and their privacy for free. Right? You don't have to pay to use a service. You're getting served advertising on everything from Hulu to apps, and that comes at a cost. And I think as companies continue to struggle with how to better manage or protect data and ensure privacy, it puts consumers at a bit more of a heightened awareness about what this means when it goes wrong. So I do think moving forward, there's going to be a bit more of a movement around pay for privacy. I'd be willing to pay a bit more of a premium to continue to use a service to know that my data is not being shared. On iOS right now, you get prompted. I'm an Apple user, and on my iPhone, I get prompted every time I download a new app. Do you want your data shared? I always click no. I'm certainly not, in the minority on that. So I think being able, as a corporation that is dealing with consumers' data or other businesses' data, right, in day-to-day dealings, it's important to have a position on it and to be able to clearly communicate to your audiences what you are doing with that data, what you are not doing with that data, and what they can expect from you in being handlers of that data. On the other side of that, I think data privacy when it comes to healthcare is a big issue as well. Telematics that people are using, health devices. Again, people are become very squirrely when their health information and data is not protected. And I know from a data privacy perspective and a compliance perspective, there are much more rigid laws and regulations in place in the US and in various states about how that information is to be protected. So I think communications plays a critical part in helping companies figure out what is our position on this? How are we complying? And then if an issue does arise, how do we address it and how do we manage it and how do we reassure the market that we will be good stewards moving forward?
Thank you so much. Really complete and extended answer, I would say. Then let me jump in my last question, actually, and to bring to the audience some more practical consideration. What are the three main services you would list that communication experts can bring to companies?
I think first is in the plan. And just assessing what would you do as a company if you were hit with a data privacy issue, if you were hit with a data breach? What are those steps that you would take to execute crisis communications effectively? And within that, how will you collaboratively work with the leadership team, in some cases the board, certainly legal and cyber teams to figure out what has happened, what can we factually share, what should we not disclose, or what can we not disclose as we're working with different authorities if it rises to needing to involve the FTC or the FBI or Health and Human Services. There's a lot of different federal agency players that also come into play. In the moment, communications teams can be incredibly impactful to be able to jump in, manage, develop content around an incident, and be able to disseminate that information to the correct parties. Sometimes that's not always the press. Sometimes it might be on social media. Sometimes it might be to partners and customers. And sometimes it's even internal communications. And your communications partner can certainly help you navigate and recommend the best approaches, channels, and strategies to make that effective. And then again, I think in the recovery phase, anytime that we encounter a company that has gone through this, then the clock restarts. There is a rebuilding process, and you want a partner that can understand and can help advise you on how do we take the narrative from where it is today, which is likely largely negative, right? If you've gone through a data breach event or if you've had a privacy related issue, and how do we convey that things have changed, what we have done to make things right, and then how do we message against that ongoing? It does take time, but with great planning, flawless execution, and a committed leadership team, it certainly can be done. And, the timeliness of this interview, I think, is really interesting. Just yesterday, for example, Uber's former chief security officer went on trial in California due to allegedly his role in covering up Uber's 2016 data breach. And what's really interesting about that case is never before do experts believe that any one executive has been held to this level of accountability for a data breach. So all eyes are really on this court case to figure out what the outcome is and what that means for chief security officers, for CISOs, for other executives. And I think it's easier to put blame on a company. It's a very different thing to put blame on an individual. So again, I think depending on the outcome of this, you may also look to your communications firm to rebuild a personal profile as well coming out of this. So just another way that this continues to be a very multifaceted issue and one where you definitely need an experienced communications person by your side.
Well, thank you so much also for concluding with this very practical example. And it's definitely very reflective of the current time. The interview is over for now. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye to our audience, and we'll see each other in the next Privacy Espresso. So thank you again, Brittany.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.